Hey guys, Ken Maxfield, the Hide Guy. I am the owner and publisher of the Maxfield Report, and here is our weekly recap for the week ending October the 18th. The week started off with offers of big packer hides, relatively unchanged with the past few weeks. As we've been sharing with you in this blog, packers have been enjoying some fairly decent sales the last 5 weeks in a row, and they've been able just to, continue to sell at steady levels. It's interesting that they haven't tried to push prices higher. That's usually the mentality of packers is when they start seeing decent business, they're one of the first ones to try to push for higher levels. But I think with larger harvest numbers and still a lot of questions about leather business in general, it seems as if everyone's pretty content to continue to hold the market level. As far as interest for the week, things started out a little bit sluggish, as it usually does. First half of the week is usually just a few people out kicking tires. But by the middle of the week and the second half of the week, it certainly looked as if interest did pick up. Those who were looking to buy at lower levels found out very quickly packers had no intention to negotiate prices. If you're willing, as I said earlier, to pay steady levels, you're able to buy some hides. And at the end of the day, I think there was a modest number of hides sold. I am not trying to lay claims that this was a busy week of trading, but you know what? End of the day, I think packers were able to kick that can down the road a little bit further ahead and continue to keep things steady. So on the cow hides, offer list came out a little bit more, as popular as they have been. But the thing that we're finding interesting is that there was the last week to 10 days, there's been a lot more interest on lower quality cow hides, such as branded cows and things of that nature. And I think what that's all about is the problems with African swine fever in Southeast Asia. It's now migrated into Europe. There's a lot of hogs that are going to either furnaces or being buried alive because it's a very contagious disease. It's not detrimental to humans. It doesn't affect humans at all, but it's very contagious amongst live hogs. So if there's a hog that has it, you want to isolate them away from any other animal because they will catch it. That said, all of those skins are going away, and those pig skins are used for lining leather, and I think that's what's happening, that people are now needing to buy some of these lower grade cows to cover those lining leather orders. So really decent amount of business last week. I don't think it's enough to raise prices, but a lot of comments that it was much easier to sell some of these lower grade cows last week. So keep an eye on that. So overall, I think producers enjoyed a decent week of sales on cow hides, and I would call prices steady to incrementally higher, especially on the dairy cow. Seems like a lot of interest on dairy cows, and that's allowed for prices to be a little bit higher there. So that's why I'm saying a little bit better prices on cows. As far as the harvest last week, it came in at 642,000 head. That compares to 645 the week prior. It was 632 the week before. We're still up about 270,000 head over last year. That's 1.1%. I've been telling you all along, look for 1 to 1.5% more animals this year, and I think we're right on track with that, and we should be pretty close on that guess. One of the things, that circling back to that African swine fever, if you are interested, if you want to log in, take a free trial of my report, I have a very extensive article about the African swine fever, the impact of what it's doing to Chinese hogs, accompanied with a lot of charts and graphs. The thing that's important here is the pork is the main staple for the Chinese consumer. And with their number of animals declining rapidly, there's not enough pork in China to cover the demand. That's why this trade agreement with the U.S. and China is very important. I think the U.S. is playing that card very heavy. And that said, we can't produce enough pork to replace what's been destroyed in China. That's why beef is going to play a very important role in 2020. And a couple of things that I'm thinking about for next year is, one, I think our harvest, if there's enough animals, will even be higher next year than this year because of the demand coming from China, which that means you and I are going to pay a lot more at the store for protein next year. So keep that in mind. Going around the world real quick here, our friends in Europe are talking a little better about the market. They're not, gung-ho and wanting to push the market higher, but it seems as if the bottom of the market's been put in. You're seeing maybe a little bit better money for few selections of bull hides. Everything else trading steady, refuting efforts to buy hides at cheaper prices. The good news is it looks like there's a possible Brexit on the table that people can live with. They have to vote on that yet. If that plan goes through, the opinion of pundits is that that should be a very soft Brexit, and that would be important for the hide trade to have a soft Brexit versus a hard Brexit. Brazil, really no change down there. It just continues to be a mess. There's too many hides being produced that there is demand. As I've told you before in this blog, a lot of the major brands have pulled out of Brazil because of the fires in the Amazon, blaming the cattle industry for a lot of that problem. That's just only pouring salt in the wounds that were already down there. Just not enough demand to clear these hides. There's hides going to the landfill. There's oodles and oodles of wet blue and crust all over the place unsold. Those who are willing to open their mouth and pay even a reasonable price and willing to take prompt shipment are probably able to write down whatever price they want. Maybe a bit of an exaggeration, but you get the zest of what's going on down there. Australia, things are looking a little bit better down there. The eastern part of the country got some rains. That's allowed to slow the migration of cattle to harvest, so a little bit fewer numbers. That's in addition, we're hearing about, again, because of that African swine fever, there's been a little bit better demand for lower grades down there. That's helping to put a floor into that market. There's some rumblings of maybe even some higher prices and some better quality hide selection. So that's not terrible either. So overall, I would say it was a modest week for sellers as a group around the globe, and looks as if, we're going to be able to continue at least to see steady levels. The other thing worth noting is putting in the export figures from last week, and let's recap those real quick in the States. Your whole cattle hide sales were 401,000. Your exports were 450,000. Wet blue sales were 211,000, and exports were 157,000. Another good, decent week of sales as well as shipments. That's 5 weeks in a row we've seen decent sales. I'm leaning towards the fact that business might be a little better than what these guys are telling us. If you look at year-to-date numbers, sales are almost 30,000 hides a week better than a year ago. That doesn't match up with the stories that Tanners are telling you, me, and everybody else, that business is less than a year ago. Now, if you look at a microcosm, I think demand for better quality hides is better than a year ago. Demand for lower quality hides may not be equal to a year ago, but overall net, I think there's a little bit better business out there than what they're telling us. So as far as next week, that one, my friends, you're going to have to check out my free trial. Go out to my website, www.themaxfieldreport.com. Look for the button at the bottom of the page offering a free 14-day trial. Every Friday, I give my market forecast for the next week, and you can also see my thoughts on my Friday report as to what I think is going to happen. So that's it for now. Ken Maxfield, the Hide Guy. Until next week.